After my dad secretly drained my college fund to invest in his new wife's business, I showed up at Thanksgiving ready to confront him. Before I could even open my mouth, he raised his glass and toasted to family, the ones who never let you down. I pulled out the bank statements right there at the table. You could hear a pin drop as my stepmom choked on her wine and ran from the room. I never thought I'd be the kind of person to post on Reddit about family drama. But I've had this sitting on my chest like a cinder block for months, and I finally need to let it out. I'm a 21-year-old guy. I live in Washington State, born and raised in Spokane. My parents split when I was 13, and honestly, it was kind of a relief. They weren't mean to each other, but they were cold, distant. My mom cried in the kitchen a lot, and my dad just stayed out of the house as much as he could. After the divorce, I stayed mostly with my mom. She worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat and did everything she could to give me a stable home. My dad moved into a condo and became weekend dad. He'd pick me up every other Friday night, drop me back off Sunday evening like clockwork. And he talked a lot about my future. "You're not going to start life drowning in debt like I did," he used to say. "I got a 529 plan going for you. Grandma and Grandpa chipped in, too. By the time you graduate high school, it'll be set." I believed him. I trusted him. When I was 15, he met Michelle. She worked at some furniture store he was remodeling. She was in her 30s, super flashy, wore tight dresses and fake nails, always talking about some new vision she had. I didn't like her right away. She acted like I was in her way. But Dad? He was obsessed. She moved in fast. Then the business talk started. She wanted to open a boutique, candles, oils, handmade bath bombs. Then she switched to crystals and high-vibe lifestyle coaching. Then to dog treats made with lavender or something. It never stuck. Still, Dad poured himself into it. And when I say himself, I mean his time, his money, everything. I kept asking about my college fund over the years. Not constantly, just when it came up, when school counselors talked about FAFSA, when I started applying to universities. Dad always brushed me off. "Stop worrying. It's all handled." By the time I got accepted into Western Washington University, I thought I was okay. I chose a school that was in-state, not too expensive, thinking the fund could cover most of it. First semester, things seemed fine. Dad didn't send me anything directly, the tuition just got paid. I figured it was automatic. Then 2 months into my second semester, I got an email from the bursar's office. "Your account is past due. Please contact financial services immediately." My stomach dropped. I called Dad. "Hey, did something happen with the 529 plan?" They said the tuition didn't go through. There was a pause. Then, "Yeah, listen, something came up. We had to shift some things around. Don't worry, I'll take care of it." That was the first time I felt something was seriously wrong. So I logged into the 529 account myself. I still had access from years ago when he added me as a secondary. It took about 5 tries to remember the right password. And there it was, $47.83. I thought it was a mistake. I refreshed the page, checked different tabs. Nope, it used to have around $92,000. I'd seen it myself back in high school when I was working on a finance project. I started digging. There were records of withdrawals. Large ones. $15,000 here, $20,000 there. Most of them labeled as qualified distribution. But the payees didn't match up with my school. Some went straight into a checking account with Michelle's name on it. I didn't sleep that night. I printed everything out. All the statements, every withdrawal, every payment. I highlighted the worst ones. I called him again the next day. "What the hell is this?" I asked. "Did you take my college money?" Silence. Then he let out this sigh, like I was the one making things difficult. "It wasn't just for you. Michelle's business is a family investment. It's going to pay off for all of us." I couldn't even speak. I felt like I was going to vomit. "That was my future," I said. "You'll be fine," he said. "You're smart, you'll figure it out. Take some loans. Everyone does." I hung up. I didn't tell my mom. I didn't tell anyone. I just worked more hours at my part-time job at the bookstore. Took out emergency loans. Skipped meals sometimes. I was too embarrassed to explain it to my friends. I kept going to class like nothing was wrong. But I started planning. Thanksgiving was coming up and I knew they'd be hosting. The whole extended family would be there, Dad's brothers, grandma, cousins. I told my mom I was going. She told me not to stir anything up, that it would just hurt more. But I needed him to feel it, to face it. I got there around 2 p.m. Their house was nicer than I remembered. New furniture, new kitchen island, even a backyard fountain. All stuff that money could buy. Michelle opened the door like she was on a reality show. Hair perfectly curled, long nails, a glass of wine in her hand. She smiled like nothing had ever happened. Look who's here. College boy. I just smiled and walked in. Dinner was fake happy. Too many jokes. Too many smiles. Michelle kept bragging about some new retail pop-up she was doing. Dad laughed at all her stories like she was a genius. No one asked me about school. Then, as we sat down to eat, Dad stood up, raised his glass. To family, he said. The ones who never let you down. That was it. The moment. I pulled out the manila folder from under the table and laid it flat in front of me. Actually, I said, since we're toasting to family, I brought something. Everyone turned. The room went quiet. I opened the folder and started laying down the papers. One by one. Statement after statement. I didn't even look at him. This is the college fund you drained to fund Michelle's magic rocks and dog shampoo. Michelle choked on her wine. Literally gagged. Then stood up and ran from the room. My uncle, the older one, leaned forward. Jim, what is this? Dad reached to grab the papers, but I slapped his hand away. Don't, I said. My voice shook. That was supposed to pay for 4 years. It was supposed to be my future. He turned red. This isn't the place for no, I cut him off. You made it the place when you toasted to family. You lied. You stole. You treated me like an obstacle. No one moved. Even the kids stopped chewing. My grandma, who barely hears anything anymore, said softly, you spent his money? I invested it. He snapped. It was a family decision. Funny, I said, looking right at him. I don't remember being part of that family decision. He yelled something then, I honestly don't remember the words. I was shaking too hard. But I got up, grabbed the rest of the folder, and walked out the front door. I could hear Michelle crying upstairs. I heard someone call my name, but I didn't stop. And that was just the beginning. I didn't go home after that. I drove to a friend's place in Cheney and crashed on his couch. I couldn't face my mom yet. I needed time to calm down, to breathe. But I wasn't done. Not even close. The next day, I woke up to 20 missed calls. 7 from Dad. 4 from Michelle. The rest from random family members. One voicemail from my dad stood out. His voice was tight, low. You had no right to air family business like that. Do you know how much damage you've done? Your grandmother cried all night. If you don't fix this, don't expect anything more from me. I didn't respond. I just forwarded the documents and a short summary to my mom. She called me crying an hour later. Not because she didn't believe me, she was devastated because she had believed him all these years. We met for lunch. I showed her everything. She looked so tired, like the years were finally catching up to her. Do you want to go to the police? She asked. I didn't know. Part of me wanted to, but I wasn't sure it would lead anywhere. It wasn't technically illegal for him to use the money, he was the account holder. The 529 was set up under his name with me as the beneficiary. That meant it was intended for my education, but he still had legal control. He just needed to claim it was used for me. Which clearly he didn't. So instead, I went a different route. I contacted every person who had invested time or money in Michelle's businesses. Her cousin who gave her a loan. Her friend from high school who helped design her website. The local shop in Spokane that carried her bath salts. I sent them all polite messages asking for information about transactions and whether they were ever repaid. Most ignored me, but one woman replied. She used to do social media for Michelle's brand. She said she quit after 2 months because Michelle never paid her. She told me Michelle had been bragging about the college fund money. Said she called it her angel backing. I took screenshots, added them to my growing file. Then I got another idea. My cousin Ellie, who was at the Thanksgiving table, texted me a few days later. She said, "Grandma's pissed. She wants to talk to you." So I called her. She didn't even say hello, just went straight into it. "I gave your father $20,000 when you were born. For your education." I told him it was only for you. Only. He told me it was still their last year. I told her everything. Every detail. She asked me for the documents. I emailed them to her. 2 days later, she called me again. I called the family attorney. I want to see if I can press charges for misappropriation. I don't know if she'll be able to, but I was finally seeing cracks in his armor. Then the best thing happened. Michelle's little business, her High Vibe Life company, had a website. I checked it one day and saw a new banner, Grand Reopening Pop-Up Market in Spokane, December 10th. I marked the date. I didn't want revenge for the sake of it. I wanted him exposed with nowhere left to hide. So I planned something. I printed flyers. Big, bold, simple ones. They had screenshots of the college fund account, quotes from Michelle's social media manager, and a headline, "This business was funded by stolen education money." I printed 300 of them. On the day of her pop-up event, I showed up early. Her booth was front and center in a little indoor market. Dream catchers, oil bottles, all laid out pretty. I didn't confront her. I just handed out flyers. Quietly, calmly. By noon, half the market vendors had seen them. Some asked questions. Some gave me strange looks. One guy, an older veteran selling wood carvings, looked me in the eye and said, "You're doing the right thing." By 1 p.m., Michelle spotted one of the flyers and screamed. She tried to grab them from people, accused me of harassment. Security came over. I explained what I was doing. Showed them proof. They didn't kick me out, they just asked me to stay on the sidewalk. I did. She packed up and left by 2 p.m. By the time I got home that night, her website was down. Then came the fallout. Michelle went quiet online after that. Her Instagram, which used to be full of selfies and long captions about manifesting abundance, went dark. Her Etsy shop disappeared. Even her personal Facebook went private. I figured she was laying low, maybe hoping it would all blow over. But then I got a call from an unknown number. "Is this the young man who passed out those flyers at the downtown market?" The voice was deep, firm. "Yes," I said, heart pounding. "This is Detective Berkman with the Spokane PD. We received a complaint about harassment, but I'd like to hear your side before making any decisions." I explained everything, took a deep breath and walked him through it. How the money was supposed to be for college, how my father withdrew it to fund Michelle's businesses, how I had the statements, how I didn't touch anyone or start a fight at the event, just handed out flyers on public property. There was a pause on the other end. "You've got documentation of this?" he asked. "Yeah, all of it. I can email it." He gave me an address. I sent everything I had, statements, screenshots, emails from Michelle's ex-assistant. He didn't call back right away, so I assumed that was the end of it. But a week later, I got another call. "I've looked into your case," he said. "And while I can't promise anything criminal will stick, there's enough here that I passed it along to our financial crimes unit." That was the first time I felt something like hope. Then came the next twist. My dad called me. I didn't answer, but he left a voicemail. His voice cracked as he spoke. "You've made your point. You've destroyed everything. I hope you're proud of yourself." Destroyed everything? I didn't think it was possible, but I started to feel a little sorry for him. Not enough to back off. Just enough to recognize that he was finally feeling the heat. Then I got a letter from a law firm. It wasn't a cease and desist like I expected. It was something else. A formal notice that Michelle was filing for divorce. I laughed when I read it, out loud, alone in my room. I thought she would cling to my dad like a lifeline. But she was cutting bait. Fast. I didn't even know what she was trying to get in the divorce. Assets? Alimony? Who knows? That same week, I got a Facebook message from a woman I didn't know. She had a familiar last name. Turns out she was Michelle's ex-sister-in-law. She told me she'd seen the flyers from the pop-up event and wanted to share her own story. Michelle, she said, had a long history of using people. Her first husband went into debt trying to support her skincare business. Her second one lost his house. This woman said Michelle always found a guy with just enough savings, sold him a dream, drained him dry, and moved on. She did the same thing to your dad. The message ended. Only difference is, now you've made it public. I sat with that for a while. I thought I was getting revenge. But maybe I was just the first one who didn't keep quiet. Then the final twist, at least for now, came a few days later. I was walking back to my apartment from class when I noticed a car parked across the street. Older black BMW. Tinted windows. Nothing suspicious really until I saw the license plate. It was my dad's. I froze. He didn't get out. He just sat there, engine running, staring straight ahead. I walked faster, heart pounding, and went inside. A minute later, I peeked out the blinds. The car was gone. I haven't seen him since. I didn't sleep well after that. Every little sound outside made me jump. I kept the blinds shut, double-checked the locks. I wasn't scared he'd hurt me, not really, but I didn't know what kind of man my dad had become. When someone loses everything, they don't always think straight. 3 days later, I got another letter. This one was different. It was from his lawyer. My dad was suing me for defamation. I read the letter 5 times. Then once more, just to make sure I hadn't misunderstood. It claimed I'd damaged his personal and professional reputation and caused emotional distress and financial loss. It accused me of harassment, slander, and malicious intent. I laughed out loud again, but this time it sounded more like a bark than a laugh. I called my mom. She came over that night with a thick file, everything she had from the divorce settlement, all the paperwork involving my college fund. She also brought her boyfriend, Steve, who used to be a paralegal. We sat at the kitchen table for hours, going over every line. Steve pointed something out I hadn't noticed. This document shows that part of the settlement included a condition. The 529 plan had to be used only for your education. That makes it enforceable. If he violated it, you have grounds to countersue. The next day, I contacted a legal aid clinic at school. They connected me with a volunteer attorney. I handed over everything. The divorce agreement, the account statements, the emails, the lawyer's letter. She looked at it all and said, "You've got a solid countersuit. And possibly a fraud case." I filed my response. And I added a suit of my own for misappropriation of funds, violation of a legal agreement, and emotional damages. I didn't even want money at that point. I just wanted the truth on record. Then I waited. I didn't hear anything for almost 2 months. Michelle stayed silent. My dad didn't call. I went to class. I worked shifts. I lived like nothing was happening, but I felt it hanging over my head every second. Until the court date came. He showed up looking awful. Gray-faced, thinner than I remembered. No Michelle. No lawyer of his own, just the firm he'd hired to scare me. When the judge asked if he had anything to say, he tried to twist the story. He said I was ungrateful. That I didn't understand the pressures of being a single father. That Michelle's business was meant to create wealth for the whole family. I stood up when it was my turn. My voice shook, but I didn't stop. I'm not angry because he made a bad investment. I'm angry because he lied. For years. He told me the money was safe. He told my grandmother it was for me. He told my mom in the divorce that he'd protect it. And then he gave it to a woman who used him just like she used others. And now he's trying to silence me for telling the truth. The judge didn't smile. Didn't nod. Just sat there and took notes. 3 weeks later, we got the ruling. The judge tossed out my dad's defamation claim entirely. Said it was meritless and clearly intended to intimidate. Then, to everyone's surprise, the judge ruled that my dad had violated the terms of the divorce agreement. He was ordered to repay $76,000. Not to me, to the 529 plan. The court said the money must be restored and used only for my education. Michelle didn't show up to court. But I heard later that she'd moved to Nevada and was trying to start another business. This time in healing retreats for divorced women. My dad hasn't spoken to me since. Not even a word. I didn't win everything. The emotional damage? Still there. The betrayal? Still fresh. But I got my future back. And my dad? He lost everything chasing a fantasy. A woman who saw him as a wallet. A dream that was never real. And now all he is left is the silence. I didn't destroy him. He did that all by himself. And I just made sure everyone finally saw it.